Whatever you do, don't invest in a rental property without doing these 8 things. My name is Antoine Martel and I'm a real estate investor. I have over 250 single-family home rental properties across the country, and I have made this checklist for you guys so that when you're out there buying rental properties, you follow this checklist before you buy your first rental. And I've developed and used this checklist over the last 5 years with over 500 rental properties across the country. Now, if you follow this 8-step checklist, you're going to guarantee that you're buying a great rental property in a good neighborhood, and you have the best team to be able to manage that rental property, which is the most important part. And now I want to give you guys this checklist so that you can follow it step by step and you don't have to think about anything else. But before we get into the list, like and subscribe to my channel so that you guys can stay up to date with new videos that come out every single week on this channel. I want you guys to be well informed when you're out there buying rental properties and protect yourself, protect your money, and protect your investment. Now, this list is also in order, so you can follow it chronologically from start to finish, and that'll help you get through your first real estate investment deal. Now, first and most importantly is to do your due diligence on the neighborhood and the city that you're investing in. What I mean by that is when you're going out there to invest in real estate, you want to find a good city, and then most importantly, you want to find the good neighborhoods within those cities to invest in. And if you don't know where to invest in or don't know which city or which neighborhood to invest in, I do have another video. There's a link in the description for another video about choosing a real estate market to invest in. Once you watch that video, come back here, and now we're going to help you choose the right neighborhood within that city. So for me personally, I first of all focus on rent to value ratios. And the rent to value ratio that I look for is right around 1.0. So if you have a house for $100,000, you want the rent in that neighborhood to be around $1,000 a month. So when you're looking at a neighborhood, you can go pull some data, pull some statistics. You can also look at the zip code online on Zillow and Redfin and see what the average home sells for in that neighborhood. Then you can go on to rentometer.com and look at the average rents in that neighborhood as well. And if you're close to the 1.0 rent to value ratio, that's going to be a great place to invest in terms of cash flow. Now, there's a couple of things to watch out for, of course, when doing this due diligence on these neighborhoods. Because most places that have really, really high rent to value ratios also may have really, really high crime. And if you can find a neighborhood that has extremely high cash flow and no crime at all, you found a gold mine. And I found one of these places before back in Cleveland, Ohio, about 5 years ago. I found a B-class neighborhood with no crime at all. You can buy houses for 70 grand and rent them out for $800 a month. Now those same houses sell for $150,000. So if you find something like that, invest as much as you possibly can in those neighborhoods, because trust me, they will appreciate quickly. Now, in addition to crime, you also want to be close to downtown. So a lot of real estate investors, when they first get started, they try to go invest in anywhere land. They try to go invest in the middle of nowhere, and they'll be like 1 or 2 hours or 3 hours outside of the main metro. I like to be close to downtown, within a 20-minute drive of downtown, or close to jobs. Like maybe even in that neighborhood, there's an Amazon warehouse or a major hospital or something like that, where people can live in your community and have a really, really short commute to work. One of the first neighborhoods that I began investing in was in Memphis, Tennessee, and I invested in the neighborhood and zip code right next to Memphis International Airport, which is the second largest cargo airport in the world. Something else to look for in terms of neighborhoods too is fringes. So what I mean by that is you want to find a really, really good neighborhood where properties may be $200,000 or $300,000, and that neighborhood touches another neighborhood where the home values may be $50,000. If you can invest on the fringe of both of those neighborhoods, you can also get some really, really good deals as well. And sometimes the $200,000 to $300,000 neighborhood is the same as a $50,000 neighborhood. The only difference is the school district. But some people don't have kids and they want to live in that good neighborhood, and you can invest 2 or 3 blocks over, still be in an okay neighborhood with low crime, but buy a house for a fraction of the cost. Now, obviously, there's so many other factors that play into choosing the right neighborhood, and we'll talk a little bit more about it later, because also when you're investing virtually, you want to get some insight from the realtor and property manager that you find on the ground as well. So they're going to be extremely helpful in guiding you to the right neighborhoods. And also, you're going to be choosing a ton of neighborhoods. It's not just one neighborhood that you're going to choose. You're probably going to choose 10 or 20 different neighborhoods that you really like and your team really likes on the ground, and start looking for deals in those neighborhoods. So now that you've chosen or found 10 to 20 different neighborhoods, the next most important piece of this entire process is to get pre-approved with a lender. And I think right now the best way to invest in real estate is to buy rental properties that are turnkey or just need a little bit of cleanup work to rent them out. So if you want to follow that strategy, I would go and get pre-approved by a lender. And there's kind of 2 different lenders that I would think about going and getting pre-approvals with. Number 1 is Kiavi. Kiavi is a hard money lender, but they have a great rental property product. The minimum loan amount is $50,000, which means you can go buy properties for $65,000 or higher. use Kiavi. They have an amazing portal. You can fill out some property information and get an immediate pre-approval letter. Kiavi would be great for somebody that's new to real estate investing, doesn't have a great credit score, doesn't have stable income. Kiavi would be great for somebody that's a little bit unordinary, that doesn't have all of the pieces that you need to get conventional financing. So if that sounds like you, head over to Kiavi.com. You can start plugging in information about rental properties in the neighborhoods that you found and just download some pre-approval letters. It takes about 3 minutes to get a pre-approval letter. It's super, super easy, and they don't ask for any income verification, bank requirements, anything like that. So it's super simple and super easy to get a pre-approval letter with Kiavi. Now, if you do have stable W-2 income or 1099 income for the last couple of years and you have a great credit score, you should look at getting conventional financing. And conventional financing comes from the main banks, right? So Bank of America, Wells Fargo, there's hundreds of thousands of banks that you can go and get conventional Fannie Mae financing for rental properties. Now, this is going to be a lot more paperwork to get a pre-approval letter. You're going to probably have to send in 2 months of bank statements, the last 2 months of pay stubs. You'll have to do a hard credit pull. All of these kinds of things is what a conventional lender will ask you for. Now, if you do fit the conventional buy box, I would probably recommend going and getting pre-approval letters from both of them, just so that when you're making an offer, it looks a little bit better that you have 2 pre-approval letters. And that's the whole point of getting these pre-approval letters, is to nip it in the butt so that when you start making offers, you can tell your agent that you already have a pre-approval letter ready to go. Because when you're making these offers to these sellers and you're asking to get financing, the first thing they're going to ask for is a pre-approval letter. So I would like for you guys to go and get that pre-approval now so that when you start making offers, you're ready to go. The other great thing about a pre-approval letter is that it also shows you what your budget is for a property. So if you're buying houses in the $100,000 to $200,000 price range and you don't really know what you could afford, going out there and getting a pre-approval letter will tell you what you could afford. Because maybe you don't have so much money in the bank or you don't have great income. It'll share with you what your budget is for your first rental property. So that's another important point. I don't want you to be approved for $100,000 max, and then you go start making offers for $120,000 and you start wasting everyone's time. So go get the pre-approval so you have it in hand, you know what your budget is, so you can start making offers. So now that you've chosen the neighborhoods you want to invest in, you have a pre-approval letter, the next thing is to get that team set up on the ground before you start making offers. A lot of people skip this step. They'll get a pre-approval letter and start making offers, and then they'll get a house under contract, and then they'll be like, okay, now what do I do, Antoine? Go set up a team on the ground first, before you even start making offers. Because as soon as you get a property under contract, the clock starts. So you need to get everybody in there all at the same time, the inspector, the property manager, the appraiser, everybody needs to go through that property, and you have a time limit to get them in and out of that property. Now, a good team in my mind would be first a property management company. Property management company is going to be the key to success and success in owning and managing rental properties for the long run. So you want to find a really, really good property management company. The way that I would recommend doing that is going on Google, typing in that city, typing in that neighborhood that you want to invest in, and then just start cold calling property management companies. Tell them who you are, where you live, what you're trying to do, and see if they can help you manage those properties, if they would be willing to walk those properties when you get them under contract, if they have any GCs or renovation crews that can come in and clean up those properties. And after you do about 10 to 20 phone calls, you'll probably end up with like 2 to 3 property management companies that are going to be a good fit for you. Now, this is a big step to find that property management company to make sure they're good. And you can go download lists of questions to ask property managers, but trust me, I've tried it all and I've built teams in 7 cities across the US, and no amount of questions is really going to help you find the perfect property management company. Trust me, they don't exist. You can ask them a bajillion questions. That property management still could have trouble in managing your rental properties. So what I recommend is just getting a list of 2 to 3 really good ones, going out there, buying a property and testing number 1. If they don't work out, go to number 2. If they don't work out, go to number 3. It's really just a trial and error. There's no secret. There's no magic to it. You really just have to have a list of a couple strong candidates that are responsive and willing to work their ass off to manage your rental property, and just start with one. If they don't work, move on to the next. Now, once you found a couple property management companies, it's time to start making offers. So I would recommend you to go out there, start making offers, start looking at deals on Zillow and Redfin, and start making offers with the listing agents. Now, after you make 10, 20, 30, 40 offers, you'll start to get some deals under contract. And this brings number 4 of this list. Number 4 of this list is to send your property manager out to that property. We do this every single time we buy a rental property across the country. We send out the property manager. And you get some really, really great insights from this property management company by doing so. They'll tell you what they think the property could rent out for, how much work the property needs. They can even get a rehab bid. They can even hire a third-party inspector to walk the property, because they only make money if you make money. So property management companies make 10% of the rental income. If the house sits vacant, they don't make any money. So they manage properties where they think they can make the most amount of money. So by sending them through a property that you have under contract, this is going to be a surefire way to make sure that the property management company is incentivized and is also giving you the right insights to figure out what they think the property could rent out for. The property manager is not the only person that should be going through the property. Obviously, your lender is going to send out an appraiser, and you should also get a third-party inspector to walk that property just to be safe. Now, number 5 is to check property taxes. So a lot of real estate investors, when they're running their numbers, they obviously put in a property taxes number, right? That helps you calculate your cash flow and what your cash-on-cash return is going to be on that rental property. But what a lot of people forget to do is to figure out when property taxes go up, if ever. So in California, when you buy a property, the property taxes change as soon as you close, right? So you'll buy a property, the property taxes are $10,000 a year. Then as soon as you close, the day of closing, your property taxes will go up to $20,000. But in other places, it works a little bit differently. In Detroit, it takes 12 months in order for property taxes to adjust. In Cleveland, Ohio, it takes 4 years for property taxes to change. In Memphis, Tennessee, it's 3 years. So you really want to ask the people on the ground, the team that you have on the ground, which is probably going to be the property manager and the realtor, how property taxes change and what they think property taxes will go up to and when. Because if you're planning to hold this property for the next 30 years, you also want to project out what property taxes will be in the next 12 or 24 months. Because you may be buying a property that has an assessed value of $10,000, but you're buying it for $100,000 and that assessed value is going to go up a little bit. So you want to make sure that you're running numbers correctly so that if the property taxes do take a huge hike, that you're still going to be cash flow positive and it's still going to be a good deal for you. The people that I know that skip this step are using like Zillow and Redfin property taxes, because on there it does show the current property taxes, but those are not accurate. They're pulling the best source of information that they do have, whether it's from the MLS or from some other county or city website, but they're not 100% accurate. So when my team and I are out there buying rental properties, not only do we pull the exact property taxes as of today, we also ask our team on the ground what they think property taxes will go up to when they do adjust. And obviously if that's in 4 years out or 5 years out, like Cleveland, Ohio, we don't really think about it all that much because we don't have much control. But if it's a city like Detroit or California where property taxes do change and will change based on the sales price, then you really want to look at those deals more carefully and ask your team on the ground what they think the property taxes will go up to. So number 6 on the list is to make sure you know what the property will rent out for when it goes vacant if it's not vacant already. So if you're buying an occupied property and it's rented out for $1,000 a month, run your numbers using $1,000 a month. But when your property manager goes to that property, get some insight from them what they think the rents could be, worst case and best case. Take the information that they give you and look at comps on Zillow and look at comps on rentometer.com. Then I would take an average of all 3 of those data points. Obviously, the property manager is probably going to have the most amount of information and probably be the most accurate. And I feel like this is just something that a lot of people skip over and look over. They just take the rent estimate or Zillow rent estimate and they use that as their rental figure if they're buying a rental property. But that number is completely bullshit. The one on Zillow and Redfin. You really want to get some insights from going to Zillow and looking at rental properties that are actually listed for rent right now. And look at those different houses for sale, see what they rent out for, look at the bedroom, bathroom count. And Rentometer has a lot of really good data because they pull rental property listings that have expired or gone off the market. And that means those rental property listings have been closed upon and somebody is now living in those properties. And obviously your property manager has a lot of data that is not open to the public, right? So they may manage 10, 20, 30 houses in the exact same neighborhood, maybe even the same street that you're buying your rental property on. So they'll have some great figures, some great numbers for you about what that property could rent out for when and if it goes vacant. Now I would take both of these numbers and plug them into your spreadsheet so that you can see what the worst case scenario is and the best case scenario is for your rental property. So one example would be a property manager comes and tells you, hey, this property can rent out for $1,200 to $1,400 a month. Don't use $1,400. Be a little bit conservative. For us personally, we go right in the middle, so we'll put like $1,300. So we know we're not gonna get it on the low end, we know we're not gonna get it on the high end, just kind of like right in the middle. Find a sweet spot between the low and high number. And that's what I would recommend for you, but if you're buying your first rental property, I want you to be super safe and super careful so that you get into a first good deal. Because we've obviously worked with our property management companies for the last 5 years. We know that their information is good and valid. When you're working with a brand new property management company, just take their information that they're giving you and add some buffer into it. So if they say $1,200 to $1,400, maybe do $1,250 or $1,200 and see if you're still happy with the cash on cash return that rental property will provide. Now, obviously, if the property rents out for $1,300 or $1,400, I mean, that's just amazing. It's just a cherry on top. But just be a little bit conservative when working with a brand new property management company in a new city, in a new neighborhood. Number 7 is only if you're buying a property that has current tenants in that property. And number 7 is to make sure that those current tenants are paying rent. So when you go and buy these rental properties that are occupied, you not only want to make sure that the tenants are living in the property, you want to make sure that they're paying to live in that property. So what you can do is reach out to your agent and say, hey, I'm buying this rental property. I just want to make sure and verify that the tenants are paying rent. And if the current owner is using a professional property management company, that's going to be super easy because they can just pull like the last 12 months of payments, show when the tenant paid, how much they owe. Now, hopefully when you get that rent roll back, you can see that the tenant has been paying every single month on time, but chances are they haven't. So what if you're buying an occupied house and the tenant has not been paying rent, or maybe they've just been paying late? Now, if a tenant hasn't been paying rent, I would probably stay away from that property. If they owe any kind of back rent, I would probably stay away from that property. You just don't want to get into an eviction on your first rental property. Now, if the tenant has been paying rent, but they're just paying late, I would still consider buying that rental property. Just because somebody does pay late, it could be their pay schedule, it could be so many different reasons why that tenant is paying late. We've had great tenants that have paid us for years, and they even lived in the property before we bought it, and they pay late every single month. And it's really just due to the way that they're paid. So they may be paid weekly or bi-weekly, and they don't save up enough money to be able to pay full rent on the first of the month every single month. So they'll make a payment on the 1st, on the 7th, and on the 15th is their final payment, and then they're fully up to par. But I would ask your property management company what they think, if they would still move forward with the property, if they're comfortable managing a property where the tenant does pay late. Some property managers don't care at all. Some property managers may be a little bit more strict and won't really like dealing with a tenant like that. So number 8 is if the property doesn't appraise, you need to walk away from that deal. So let's say you have a property under contract, your property manager went through it, your inspector went through it, the appraiser went through it, and then a week later you get the appraisal report back and the property didn't appraise for what you're under contract for. For example, let's say you're under contract for $100,000 and the property appraised for $90,000. So that means a lender is going to give you a loan based on $90,000 and you're still paying $100,000. So that $10,000 in margin, you'll have to come up with that money out of pocket. So not only will you put your 20% down, you'll have to come up with an extra $10,000 if you want to move forward with that rental property. But I think you really only have 2 options here, and there is no option to move forward buying a property over the appraised value. That is not an option. So the 2 options are back out of the deal or ask for a reduction. It's super important when you're buying your first rental property to pay what the property is worth. Don't overpay for the appraised value on that rental property. Option 1 is to just walk away from the deal. Tell your agent that you don't want to move forward with the property because the property has not appraised. And there should be a stipulation in the contract that you signed with the seller that has an appraisal contingency, so you can back out of the deal, get your earnest money back, and go find another one. Option 2 is a great option, and this is the perfect opportunity to ask for a reduction on the sales price. So if the property, again, appraised for $90,000, you're under contract for $100,000, you can go back to the seller, go to your agent, and ask for a reduction of $10,000. Tell them that you only want to move forward on buying that property for its appraised value. Now, sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't, but sometimes it can give you some huge reductions in price that make your deal's numbers skyrocket. For example, if the seller is not willing to give you full $10,000, but maybe $8,000 or $7,000, and you only need to come up with $2,000 to $3,000 extra out of pocket, you could put that all into your spreadsheet, run some numbers on it, and sometimes it can really significantly increase your returns. But I would not move forward on buying a rental property that does not appraise. I would either back out of that deal or ask for a reduction from the seller. So if you follow this list step by step and make sure you do every single thing on this list when you're buying your first, second, third, 100th rental property, I guarantee that you're going to be buying a good property in a good neighborhood. You're going to be getting the right debt, you'll have the right team, you have way higher chances of success if you follow these 8 steps. I hope this video was helpful to you. Please like and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you on the next one.